Hey guys, KOMK, KOMK. Here I am talking about using a fountain pen. Yes, fountain pen, that old school feel of writing and doing things. Having a fountain pen for me, I never really used a fountain pen before up until about maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And since I started using a fountain pen and always having a fountain pen on me, it kind of gave me these a different feeling about writing. Okay, as you know, I do a lot of writing in terms of like keeping a journal, reflective writing. I write down my ideas. You can check out the videos about keeping a journal. Also about the video I just did about always having an idea notebook on you. Things like that. I do a lot of writing, a lot of pen to paper type of writing. And I've come to love having a fountain pen. One of the biggest things, one of the first things about using a fountain pen is that it becomes personal to you. You know, everybody has pens and we go through pens all the time and stuff like that. But there's something about having a fountain pen. The way it looks, the nib, anytime you have a something that has its own vocabulary that you need to learn about in terms of using it, the nib kind of becomes personal to you. The way it hits the paper and the way you write with it. I'm not saying I have beautiful handwriting, quite the contrary, but it still makes me think about writing, and the pen itself becomes personal to me. I don't spend a lot of money on a pen. I have a KOMK, which is my main pen, my go-to pen. I have a Pilot pen, a fountain pen that I use from one of my journals, and a couple more, but they're not very expensive. I don't have any real high top-end fountain pens. A second thing that is really interesting is that I never see anybody else using a fountain pen. When I'm out and, if you sign a credit card receipt or something like that, or even when I'm just sitting around at a cafe or maybe sitting at a bar or restaurant writing or something like that, if I ever see anybody else writing, nobody else has a fountain pen. And that kind of also, I think, kind of becomes something that's special as well. Because then it becomes that rare thing, right? You don't see it very often. It's not something that you see anybody else using. And that itself kind of keeps it, almost gives it that original feel. Although fountain pen users, and there's a huge, if you go to Facebook and Reddit and everything like that, there's a lot of people that really love fountain pens. And they use them religiously, just as I have become to use. Because this is, it also gives you that connection to the past. I know a few people that grew up in England, and they said that in primary school that they would have to use fountain pens in order to learn penmanship and handwriting, things like that. So we didn't do that in the States, at least not in my generation. All right. So using a fountain pen it's personal. It's something that I rarely, if ever, see anybody else using. Okay. A third thing is, like I mentioned about not my generation, it's kind of that connection to the past. It kind of makes me feel like, at times, maybe gives me that kind of distinguished feeling when I'm pulling out my fountain pen or something like that. And it's funny too, because I use my own pen when I do sign something, say like a credit card. That would be the most common thing that we pull a pen out to sign. And I use my own pen, and when I pull out the fountain pen, because it's the only pen I carry on me, I get comments on it. People are like, "Ooh, a fountain pen." They kind of, and I know I'm not young, but I'm not old, and it does kind of bring back that kind of nostalgic type feel and look. I think when I use it and when other people see me using the fountain pen, I get a few comments here and there about it, and that's what brings me to another point, in that it becomes kind of a conversational piece. Often there's been times I have been sitting there by myself, writing by myself, and somebody will come up and say something about me using a fountain pen. Again, I do not have beautiful handwriting, and often that's people's comments. They'd be like, "Hey, can I see your handwriting? Or you must have beautiful handwriting. Are you doing calligraphy?" No, but I just use the fountain pen. And it's definitely a conversation piece. People say something about it because, just as I mentioned, it's a rare thing to see. Other people don't see fountain pens. They know of them. They see them on TV or movies or something like that, and they know about the fountain pen, but they don't see people using them. So it kind of is a good conversation starter or something like that. And that's kind of like, it's kind of fun with that. It's kind of fun with that. And because the fountain pen is refillable for ink, you end up creating a relationship with the pen. And that goes back to it feels personal to me, you know. I've used the same jar of ink for, I think, maybe 2 years. So even though I write a lot and everything like that, it's becomes this process of every couple days, every 3 or 4 days, you have to refill the ink and everything like that. And that also kind of, it's almost like when you make your own coffee and you grind the beans and you prepare everything, and you have a little hot water kettle and you're pouring in your own drip and everything like that, or however you're making your coffee. It's that type of thing. I don't smoke, but people who roll their own cigarettes, they love the process of it. The process of rolling the cigarette before they smoke it and stuff like that is very similar when using a fountain pen. And the last thing is that, although I've mentioned a couple times that my handwriting is not beautiful, not at all, but it does make me think about my handwriting. Sometimes, because I keep a journal, gateway to keeping a journal, I sometimes will start to write in cursive. My normal writing pattern is kind of like a cursive print type, flow or whatever. And sometimes I start a journal because I'm pulling out a different fountain pen that I keep in the journal. I pull it out and I start the first page. I'll do maybe the first page, or try to get through the first page in cursive, where I'm writing a little bit slower and thinking about things and stuff like that. So it does make me a little bit more conscious of my penmanship. But that's a small thing, I think. It's a small thing, and it's hard to get into unless you're actually sitting down and practicing cursive or calligraphy writing or something like that, if you don't naturally or keep the habit of using cursive writing. But it's still another fun thing about having a fountain pen and using a fountain pen. So I suggest everybody try to have a fountain pen with you. You can get super cheap fountain pens. I've seen them on Amazon where you can buy a 5-pack for, I don't know, like $15 or something like that, and they're cheaper fountain pens. But try to use one. I never used one before until a few years ago, and since using one, that's all I use exclusively. Okay, so try a fountain pen, see how it changes your writing and how you feel about writing and how you feel about carrying a fountain pen on you. See what reactions you get from people on the street when you're going into restaurants and signing a bill or whatever it may be. See what the reaction is and stuff like that. People might be very interested to see why you're using a fountain pen. You gotta tell them the King of KOMK told you to. All right, that's all I got. See you next time. Peace.